But justice, it must be observed, is a mean state, not after the same manner as the aforementioned virtues, but because it aims at producing the mean, while injustice occupies both the extremes. And justice is the moral state in virtue of which the just man is said to have the aptitude for practicing the just in the way of moral choice, and for making division between himself and another, or between two other men, not so as to give to himself the greater, and to his neighbor the less share of what is choice-worthy, and contrariwise of what is hurtful, but what is proportionally equal, and in like manner when adjudging the rights of two other men. Injustice is all this with respect to the unjust, and since the unjust is excess or defect of what is good or hurtful respectively, in violation of the proportionate, therefore injustice is both excess and defect, because it aims at producing excess and defect. Excess, that is, in a man's own case of what is simply advantageous, and defect of what is hurtful. And in the case of other men, in like manner, generally speaking, only that the proportionate is violated, not always in one direction, as before, but whichever way it happens in the given case. And of the unjust act, the less is being acted unjustly towards, and the greater the acting unjustly towards others. Let this way of describing the nature of justice and injustice, and likewise the just and the unjust generally, be accepted as sufficient. Again, since a man may do unjust acts, and not yet have formed a character of injustice, the question arises whether a man is unjust in each particular form of injustice, say a thief, or adulterer, or robber, by doing acts of a given character. We may say, I think, that this will not of itself make any difference. A man may, for instance, have had connection with another's wife, knowing well with whom he was sinning, but he may have done it not of deliberate choice, but from the impulse of passion. Of course he acts unjustly, but he has not necessarily formed an unjust character. That is, he may have stolen, yet not be a thief, or committed an act of adultery, but still not be an adulterer, and so on in other cases which might be enumerated. Of the relation which reciprocation bears to the just we have already spoken, and here it should be noticed that the just which we are investigating is both the just in the abstract and also as exhibited in social relations, which latter arises in the case of those who live in communion with a view to independence, and who are free and equal either proportionally or numerically. It follows then that those who are not in this position have not among themselves the social just, but still just of some kind and resembling that other. For just implies mutually acknowledged law, and law the possibility of injustice, for adjudication is the act of distinguishing between the just and the unjust. And among whomsoever there is the possibility of injustice, among these there is that of acting unjustly. But it does not hold conversely that injustice attaches to all among whom there is the possibility of acting unjustly, since by the former we mean giving oneself the larger share of what is abstractedly good, and the less of what is abstractedly evil. This, by the way, is the reason why we do not allow a man to govern, but principle, because a man governs for himself and comes to be a despot. But the office of a ruler is to be guardian of the just, and therefore of the equal.